Leave a little gap in case someone wants to walk through so I don't go in front of it. I think that'd be better. कैसे है? ये इसका लिंक क्या है?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Successful is the one who purifies his nafs, who purifies his soul. But in the Quran, our success depends on the purification of our souls and the purification of our nafs. What is this nafs that Allah talks about in the Quran? The nafs is a combination of all the desires that we have inside of us. And the desires that we have could be good, and the desires we have can also be bad. So humans have good desires in them, and humans have bad desires inside of them. If somebody says that I want to pray 5 times a day, then this is a good desire, and it is present in human beings, in us. If somebody wants to say, if somebody says that, okay, I want to take care of my parents, this is also a good desire. And it is present in humans. In the same way, if somebody says that, okay, I want to drink alcohol, it's a bad desire. It is present in humans. Or if somebody says, okay, fine, I have to steal. Stealing is again a very bad desire. It is present in humans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Successful is the one who purifies his desires. So purification of the desire is the key to our success. This purification of the desire is not an easy job. Inside of our souls is this soul, inside of our body is this soul, and this soul actually always is forcing us to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا أُبَرِّيُ نَفْسِي. Allah Ta'ala mentions what Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam said, that I do not absolve my nafs, my desires. This nafs inside of us is there, and it is very, very, it is very, very, what you can say, it is very, very disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam says, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي, I don't absolve this nafs. إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةً بِالسُّوءِ, and surely this nafs is disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even though you have the intention that I'm not going to disobey Allah, but there's something inside of you that forces you to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is called the nafs. And our job is to purify this nafs. And until and unless this nafs is purified, we will not be able to enter into Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Jannah. Allah ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ جَزَاءُ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. It is a reward for those who purify their souls. So now these desires of the soul or the desires of a human, not everyone has similar desires. Not everyone has the same desires. Different people have different desires. Some people have desire for wealth. And scholars have said that the desire for worldly things is more present in women than in men. So desire for clothing, desire for jewelry, desire for purses, desire for decorations, desire for all these things. Men are not more concerned towards these things. Women have more interest in this. Then there is a desire. There is a desire for women, and that desire is present in men. And that is why men cannot control their eyes, do not control their glance. Although it is the most easiest thing in the world. If you look at it, closing your eyes is the easiest thing. But they end up looking at the na-mahram, and which is something that goes against the Quran. Allah says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. They tell the believers that they should lower their gaze. And why is it very difficult? Because this desire is very strong. So the way women have this desire for worldly things, men have this desire for women and looking at the na-mahram. This is something that is uncontrollable sometimes. And in these times that we are living in, it is even more evident that it is something that most of us get involved in. So there is a website by the name of WebRoot. It is an internet research website. And the website tells us that every day there are 2.5 billion emails containing pornographic stuff that move around in the world. So there are 7 billion people in this world, and there's 2.5 billion emails containing this obnoxious stuff. So we're living in times where it is easy to fulfill this desire, especially in those countries where there is no limit and where there is no restriction on these things. So some people have desire for wealth and things of the world, and some people have desire for sex and all these things. And when this happens, then sometimes young people, they get involved in these desires and all their mind is thinking is this. So they can't study, they can't work, they can't do anything because this desire has overpowered them. Some people have a different type of desire. people have desire to be angry all the time. And why do I call anger a desire? It is a similar thing. In many ways, it is similar to the desire of sex. Because anger is when you show your emotion when you're disturbed by someone. And this anger is such a big sin that the Prophet ﷺ has said, Al-ghazabu yufsidul iman. That this anger actually destroys your iman. It disrupts your iman. So the more angry you become, and the more you do not control yourself in terms of anger, the more you are likely to be, the more likely it is likely that your iman goes down. A lot of us, we think desires pertaining to sex, desires pertaining to fornication, desires pertaining to drinking alcohol, these are big sins. And na'uzubillah, if somebody gets involved in these sins, he tries to hide these things. But this desire for anger, we think that anger is not that big of a sin. But if you look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, anger seems to be one of the biggest sins of a human being can do. The Prophet ﷺ has said that the worst one among you is the one who does not have softness in his heart. So the one who's angry all the time is the worst one among us. If you compare these two sins, the desire for sex and the desire for anger, it seems that the desire for anger is a bigger sin. This desire for sex, it ends with time. When you become older, this desire weakens. But the desire for anger, the desire for sex weakens. The desire for anger, as you get older, it becomes even stronger. That is why you must have seen sometimes the older men are more angry than the younger ones. Then the end result of sex, of the desire for sex, is fornication. But the end result for anger is, killing somebody. That's the end result of anger. So even in terms of end result, this is a far worse desire. And the third and more important point, why anger is a bigger sin, is that if somebody commits desire regarding sex, then he tends to hide it. But this anger is such that when you are angry and people around you also feel very angry. And it is a contagious disease. So that is why if somebody in your family is angry, then other people in the family also become angry. So different people have different desires. Some have desire for the worldly things of the world. Some have desires for sex. Some have desires for wealth. And there are other things also. Some people have desire to go to sleep all the time. Some young people have desire to eat all the time. Allahu Akbar. So a few years ago, we were in New York and there was a snowstorm. And the state announced that everybody should stay inside because it was 6, 7, 8 feet of snow, a lot of snow, and there was a lot of snow. So everybody was inside, nobody was going out. 24 hours passed, and there was more snow. So there was again another announcement by the state that nobody should come out. It is very dangerous to go outside. One of our friends, we saw that he was packing up, he was wearing his overcoat, he was wearing his shoes. It seemed as if he was ready to go outside. So one of us, we asked him, and what is your plan? Why are you going outside? The state has announced nobody should go outside. And you know what he answered? He said, it's been 48 hours and I haven't had chocolate. So I will risk my life and I will go outside, but I cannot live without chocolate. So some people have desire for different people have desires for different things. Sometimes people don't have any of these desires. But they have one desire which is worse than all of these desires. A hidden desire. And what is that desire? It is the desire to become big in the eyes of people. The desire to become the leader. The desire to become known. This is the worst type of desire. Why? Because this desire enters into your heart when you are arrogant. When you have takabbur inside of you. And why this is the worst desire? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. That person is not going to enter Jannah even if he has an iota of takabbur inside of him. So this is the worst type of desire. So different people have different types of desire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّرَ. That successful is the one who purifies these desires. So the main question is, how do you purify these desires? And the Mashaykh has said that the first step in the purification of the desire is to accept your desires. Sometimes we're not even ready to accept that we have these desires inside of us. And sometimes, genuinely, we do not understand our desires. So sometimes we are being told by others that, you do this, and we get upset. That how dare you think that I am like this? But the reality is that somebody who's telling us our faults and our bad desires is actually doing us a favor. And that is why Umar radiallahu anhu used to say, that the one who gives us knowledge about our faults, we will give him the du'as. Allahu Akbar. So the first step is to understand your desire and to accept these desires. So the Mashaykh have said that there are 4 ways of purifying these desires. And the first way is to do the zikr of Allah, do the remembrance of Allah. And the Ta'ala says in the Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى وَذَكَرَ اسْمَ رَبِّهِ فَصَلَّى. The successful is the one who purifies his desires, and that successful person is the one who does the zikr of Allah and who stands up in salah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Zikrullahi shifa'ul qulub, that the zikr of Allah is a cure for the heart. So the one who does zikr of Allah, that his desires are mellowed down. The same person is ready to commit the biggest of sins. And that same person, he starts doing the zikr of Allah. He starts coming to the masjid, he starts praying salah, all of this. And he himself now says that, no, I should not do this. Nobody is forcing him into stop committing sins. He himself forces himself. Why? Because this is how zikr works. And zikr is not limited to one thing. If you pray a lot of nafil salat, this is the zikr of Allah. If you read a lot of Quran, it is the zikr of Allah. If you make a lot of dua, it is the zikr of Allah. You do a lot of istighfar, it is the zikr of Allah. If you send a lot of salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is also a zikr of Allah. The zikr of Allah is not limited to one thing or two things. And if you're somebody who just talks to Allah in his heart all the time, this is also a beautiful form of zikr of Allah. But sometimes, you don't have this habit of doing the zikr of Allah, it becomes difficult. And sometimes if you say that, okay, I can't sit down and do the zikr of Allah all the time, is there any other way I can purify my desires? So the Mashaykh have said that there's another way of purifying this desire. And that is to show willpower. When you say something like this, that okay, from now on I am not going to lie. When you say this with strength, and when you mean it, this is called willpower. And such people who show willpower and who go against the desire and they show strength about these things, they have been praised by the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says, Al-Mujahidu man jahada nafsahu fi ta'atillah. That such a person is a mujahid who goes against his desires in order to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this showing willpower is actually a very beautiful thing. And those people who are courageous, who show a lot of willpower, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah loves those who are courageous, who have a lot of strong willpower. Walter Fisher, the psychologist of the 60s and the 70s, he did a research on willpower. And he said, all those people who I have interviewed many different leaders of commercial industries. And among those CEOs of all these industries, he saw one thing that was common among all of them, that they had very strong willpower. And he said willpower is the single most important ingredient of success. And his research was very interesting. His research spanned about 30 to 40 years. And his research was this, that he asked if a group of young kids, like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, and he offered them candy. He said, you can have one candy now. And young kids, they love candies, right? So you can have one candy now, but if you wait for half an hour, I'll give you 2 candies. Now some kids who are offered candies, they just cannot resist, they cannot wait, they cannot show willpower. So a lot of them, they said, okay, no, we want our candy now. So they took their one candy and they started eating it. There were some among them who said, okay, fine, we'll wait for half an hour. Because after half an hour, I'm going to get how many? 2 candies. So then he tracked. He wrote down the names of those who did not show willpower and those who showed willpower. And then he tracked their lives for 30 to 40 years. Till they stepped into, adulthood, and even they stepped into, the early 40s and 50s. And then he said, after tracking them for 40, 50 years, this is the conclusion that I come to. That those people who did not show willpower and those who showed willpower, there are many differences between the two groups. And he said the first difference between the two groups is that those who did not show willpower, they were overweight. And those who showed willpower, they were not overweight. The second difference, he said, that those who did not show willpower, they were less in terms of education. And those who showed willpower, they were more in terms of education. And then the third thing he said, that those who did not have willpower, they were less in terms of their wealth. Those who had more willpower, they had more wealth. And the fourth thing he said, that those who did not show willpower, their marriages did not work. A lot of them were single parents. And those who showed willpower, their marriages worked more than those who did not show willpower. And the fifth thing he said, that those who did not show willpower, they were more prone to do criminal acts. And those who showed willpower, none of them were criminals. So So he showed 6 to 7 different, huge differences between those who did not show willpower and those who showed willpower. And finally he said that my conclusion of this research paper is that willpower is the single most important ingredient of success. And this is what the Quran tells us 1400 years ago. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. The successful is the one who purifies his nafs. So one way of purifying the nafs is to do a lot of zikr of Allah. If this is not possible, then another way is to show willpower. That okay, from now on, I'm not going to miss my Fajr prayers. From now on, I'm not going to lie to anyone. From now on, I'm going to keep my gaze lowered. All these things are willpower. But sometimes this is also difficult. So is there any other way of showing willpower? And the Mashaykh have said that yes, there's one other way, which is easier and sometimes even more effective. And what is that way? That way is to keep the company of the pious people. When people come in from different areas and they gather together so that they can remember Allah. In a hadith it comes when people gather from different areas and they come and their only purpose to gather is to remember Allah, to talk about Allah. Then angels descend on these majalis. And angels are so many in numbers that they go on to the arsh of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks them that, oh my angels, what are these people doing? And they answer, oh Allah, they are trying to remember you. And Allah says, okay, what do they want? And they reply that they want that you forgive them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, okay, all of you angels, you bear witness that I forgive all of them because they are sinning only because they want to remember me. So this going in the company of pious people, going in those places where Allah is being remembered, is one of the ways of purifying these desires. Sometimes that is also not possible. You don't find people. Is there any other way of purifying these desires? And there's one last way that you can purify these desires. And that way sometimes is the most effective way. And what is that way? What is that route that you take to purify these desires? And this route is to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ask Allah for help. The Prophet ﷺ said, the one for whom Allah opens the doors of dua, Allah also opens the doors of mercy on that person. So the one who has the habit of making dua all the time, he's always in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will always be successful. That is why the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who asks Allah all the time, and the one who asks Allah all the time, and the one who asks Allah about everything. So everything that he needs, he asks Allah for. And all the time he's asking Allah, he's making du'as to Allah. Such a person, Allah makes him a wali of Allah. So there was a businessman in the city of Karachi, where I come from. And he was a rich man who had a very nice, who had a very good business. And people used to think that he's a very pious man because he had a beard and he was seen in the Masjid and all of that. And he told this story himself, that people used to think that I am very pious. And my situation was that I was so fond of alcohol that I would drink alcohol every night. And people used to think that I am a very pious person. And Allah has given me a lot of wealth. So every year, 2 to 3 times, I would also go and visit the Haramain al-Sharifain. So people used to think that this is a very nice man, he's a very pious person. And here I am, my situation is such that sometimes when I would be coming back from Umrah, and if the flight is offering alcohol, sometimes even coming back from Umrah, I would desire that I have a sip of alcohol. Then he says that once, the whole family decided that we'll go for Umrah. And the morning on which I had the flight to go to Umrah, that night I went out with my friends and I drank alcohol the whole night. Allahu Akbar. He said, I am surprised how I can do this. In the morning I am supposed to fly to the house of Allah, and the night I am spending the whole night. So when I came back home around Fajr time, all drunk, and when my wife saw me in this state, she told me that you are the worst person in the world. How can you do this? And he said, I was so drunk that I asked my wife, I told my wife that you just shut up. So then she kept quiet. We also had to travel. Then he says, these are his own words, that when I wore the ihram to go for Umrah, this alcohol had not come out of my body yet. And we all went to the airport and we took this flight from Karachi to Jeddah. It took us 3-4 hours, and in the afternoon we were at Jeddah, and in the evening we were in Makkah Mukarram. We left all our luggage in the hotel, and we all, the whole family, we all went inside the haram. Again I saw these thousands of people, and I said to myself, and my wife is right, I am the worst person in the world. These thousands of people here, none of them has done this sin that I had committed. And then he said, what can I do? My desire for alcohol is such that I just cannot control it. So he said, I did my Umrah with a very heavy heart. I was very sad. So we did the tawaf, and then I did the sa'i. And then when the Umrah was done, my kids and my wife, they all said to me, then let's go. And I told them, well, you go back to the hotel and I'll be coming in a few minutes. So they left. And I was sitting there in the haram, looking at the house of Allah. And somehow I said to Allah that, oh Allah, what can I do to make you happy? And I was so sad that so many times I have done tawbah to Allah that I will not do this, but I end up doing this again. So finally I decided I'll go to the door of the Kaaba. So he went to the door of the Kaaba. And he said that I made this dua. Every time I would make a dua, but this time my words of the dua were different. I was so fed up with this desire. So I said to Allah, oh Allah, I am not here to tell you that I'm going to leave this sin again. Because this I tell you every time I commit this sin. So today I'm telling you something different. Oh Allah, if you want me to leave this sin, then I am presenting myself to you. And he said, I cried to Allah. And then he said, I came back to my hotel room. He said, from that day to today, it has been 17 years. I was such an alcoholic. In 17 years, I haven't touched alcohol a single time. So when you make dua to Allah, sometimes this is the best way of purifying the desire. So this purification of the desire is a duty upon all of us. It is not something which is nafal, non-compulsory. It is the most important aspect of our life. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Successful is the one who purifies his desires. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to purify our desire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the tawfiq to become from those sinners who have been forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Let us please make intention. This is one of the best ways of purifying the desires, to go in the path of Allah.
or later, cash, credit, whatever it is, you do it.
Yeah, cash this weekend.
Anybody else? Anybody left out? Here's everyone. Anybody left out? And I'm sure everybody has intention. And sometimes people feel shy of standing up. And they know that Allah knows. They're like, everybody does. And this is a sunnah that Sahaba in the time of Rasulullah they also used to get out and give them. So that's why we try to remind us to be mindful. And sometimes what happens, Shaitan is in between us and our irada, also. Doesn't give us a chance to stand up and make intention, So this is like breaking the, back of Shaitan, when you stand up and you give intentions, this is like one step closer to acting upon. And this is also one thing that is not a promise, It's only an intention that you want to do something, and you want Allah to help you in this regard. So even if you are not able to do it for some reason, inshallah, it will still be something. And anybody else? One more minute and then we'll do it. Inshallah. So, inshallah, right after dua, we will go for food. And after that, inshallah, we will get back together and we will have a and after that, we will have mashwara. And, one night out of the week, we request all the brothers to make a zakah. So, we are sleeping at home, but we can also, stay in the masjid, sleep in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, we can make Fajr al Jamia, get the reward. Also, inshallah, after Fajr, there is a short Bayaan, we can participate in that. Every day of the week, we are spending time at home. So, inshallah, let's make an intention that one day a week, inshallah, I will spend in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll make it happen. So, everybody will try to do.
Before making dua, I would request all of you to, for a few minutes, close your eyes and bow your head and try to remember Allah inside of your hearts. So I would request all of you, just for a few minutes, please close your eyes and bow your head and try to remember Allah inside of your hearts. वाला दिल बदल दे इर्स वाला दिल बदल दे मेरा गफलत में डूबा दिल बदल दे बदल दे दिल की दुनिया दिल बदल दे बदल दे दिल की दुनिया दिल बदल दे करम फरमा खुदाया दिल बदल दे गुनाहगारी मैं कब तक उम्र काटूं गुनाहगारी मैं कब तक उम्र काटूं बदल दे मेरा रास्ता दिल बदल दे सुनूं मैं ना مزہ آ جائے مولا دل بدل دے، تیرا ہو جاؤں اتنی آرزو ہے، تیرا ہو جاؤں اتنی آرزو ہے، بس اتنی ہے تمنا دل بدل دے، میری فریاد سن لے میرے مولا، میری فریاد سن لے میرے مولا، بنا لے اپنا بندہ دل بدل دے، ہٹا لوں آنکھ اپنی ماں سوا سے، ہٹا لوں آنکھ اپنی ماں سوا سے، جیوں میں تیری خاطر دل بدل دے، جیوں میں تیری خاطر دل بدل دے، جو تیرا سامنا ہو روز محشر، جو تیرا سامنا ہو روز محشر، تو دیکھے مسکرا کر دل بدل دے، ہواؤں حرص والا دل بدل دے، میرا غفلت میں ڈوبا دل بدل دے، میرا غفلت میں ڈوبا دل بدل دے، لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ، سبحان ربی العلی الوہاب، اللہم صلی علی سیدنا محمد وعلی آل سیدنا محمد وبارک وسلم، ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين، ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا، ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب، اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ولسانا ذاكرا وقلبا خاشعا ورزقا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء، اے اللہ ہم آپ کے عاجز مسکین بندے ہیں، اللہ ہمارے گناہوں کو معاف فرما، ہماری خطاؤں سے درگزر فرما، ہمارے عیبوں کی پردہ پوشی فرما، اللہ برے دن سے محفوظ فرما، اللہ بری رات سے محفوظ فرما، میرے مالک برے کاموں سے محفوظ فرما، اے اللہ ہمیں برے انجام سے محفوظ فرما، اللہ ہدایت ملنے کے بعد گمراہی سے محفوظ فرما، اللہ سیدھا رستہ ملنے کے بعد بھٹکنے سے محفوظ فرما، اللہ اپنا قرب حاصل ہو جانے کے بعد اپنی دوری سے محفوظ فرما. میرے مالک نعمتیں مل جانے کے بعد نعمتوں کے چھن جانے سے محفوظ فرما. اللہ عزتیں ملنے کے بعد ذلت سے محفوظ فرما. میرے مالک در در کے دھکے کھانے سے محفوظ فرما. اللہ نفس و شیطان کے مکر و فریب سے محفوظ فرما. اللہ نفس و شیطان کے مکر و فریب سے محفوظ فرما. میرے مالک آپ کو ناراض نہیں کرنا چاہتے. اللہ تیرے کمزور بندے ہیں. اللہ کبھی شیطان ہمیں لوٹ لیتا ہے. اللہ کبھی ہمارا نفس ہمیں لوٹ لیتا ہے. اے اللہ ہمارے لیے گناہ چھوڑنا بڑا مشکل کام ہو گیا. اللہ آپ کے لیے گناہ چھڑوانا آسان ہے. میرے مالک گناہوں سے پاک زندگی نصیب فرما. غم حیات کے سائے نصیب نہ کرنا. غم حیات کے سائے نصیب نہ کرنا. کسی غریب کو دل کا غریب نہ کرنا. میں امتحان کے قابل نہیں میرے مولا. مجھے گناہ کا موقع نصیب نہ کرنا. اے اللہ گناہوں سے پاک زندگی نصیب کرنا. اے اللہ تیرے لٹے ہوئے بندے ہیں. اللہ کبھی ہمارا نفس ہمیں لوٹ لیتا ہے. اللہ کبھی شیطان لوٹ لیتا ہے. اللہ ہم نے تو دنیا داروں کو دیکھا. لوگ لٹے ہوئے بندے کو دیکھتے ہیں. لوگ زیادہ مہربانی کرتے ہیں. اے اللہ آپ تو سب سے بڑھ کر مہربان ہیں. اللہ ہم لٹے ہوئوں کے حال پر مہربانی فرما. میرے مالک اٹھے ہوئے ہاتھوں کی لاج فرما. اللہ اٹھے ہوئے ہاتھوں کی لاج فرما. اے میرے مالک میں نیک نہ بن سکا. اللہ تیرے نیکوں میں آ کے بیٹھ گیا ہوں. اللہ نیک نہ بن سکا. اللہ نیکوں میں آیا بیٹھا ہوں. اللہ ان نیکوں کی برکت سے میرے مالک ہمیں بھی نیکی نصیب فرما. ان نیکوں کی برکت سے اللہ ہمیں بھی اپنی محبت کا ایک قطرہ نصیب فرما. اللہ اپنے پیارے محبوب کی محبت نصیب فرما. اللہ نماز کی حضوری نصیب فرما. اللہ سجدے کا سرور نصیب فرما. اے اللہ رات کے آخری پہر کے مناجات کی لذت نصیب فرما. اللہ وہ تیرے کیسے بندے ہوتے ہیں. رات کے آخری پہر میں تیرے سامنے ہاتھ پھیلاتے ہیں. تو انہیں انکار نہیں کرتا. اللہ وہ تیرے کیسے بندے ہوتے ہیں. رات کے آخری پہر میں تیرے سامنے محبت بھرے سجدے کرتے ہیں. تو ان کے تذکرے اپنے فرشتوں میں کرتا ہے. میرے مالک ہمیں بھی ان میں شامل فرما. اے اللہ رحمت کا معاملہ فرما. اللہ جہاں جہاں مسلمان پریشانی کے عالم میں ہے اللہ ان کی پریشانیوں کو دور فرما. اللہ جو گھر کی ناچاکیوں کی وجہ سے پریشان اللہ ان کی پریشانیوں کو بھی دور فرما. اللہ جو کام کاروبار کی وجہ سے پریشان اللہ ان کی پریشانیوں کو بھی دور فرما. میرے مالک جو اپنی صحت کی وجہ سے پریشان اللہ ان کی پریشانیوں کو بھی دور فرما. اللہ جو اولاد کی وجہ سے پریشان اللہ ان کی پریشانیوں کو بھی دور فرما. میرے مالک اٹکے ہوئے کاموں کا ہونا آسان فرما. اللہ الجھے ہوئے کاموں کو اپنی رحمت سے سلجھا. میرے مالک اٹھے ہوئے ہاتھوں کی لاج فرما. اللہ اس بندے پہ کوئی حسرت نہیں جو کسی اور در سے خالی ہاتھ اٹھ جائے. اللہ حسرت تو اس پر ہے جو یہاں آپ کے در پہ آیا. سخیوں کے بادشاہ کے در پہ آیا. یہاں سے بھی خالی ہاتھ لوٹ گیا. اللہ خالی ہاتھ لوٹنے سے محفوظ فرما. میرے مالک جیسا آپ ہمیں دیکھنا چاہتے ہیں اے اللہ ہمیں ویسا بننے کی توفیق عطا فرما. اللہ ہمارے تینوں حرم کی حفاظت فرما. اے اللہ ہمیں بار بار اپنے گھر کا دیدار نصیب فرما. اپنے پیارے محبوب کے در کی حاضری نصیب فرما. اللہ اس مسجد پر اپنی خاص رحمت برکت نازل فرما. اللہ ہر وہ شخص جو یہاں حاضر ہو اے اللہ اس کے سینے کو تقوی سے منور فرما. اے اللہ دعوت و تبلیغ کے کاموں کی حفاظت فرما. اللہ جہاں اللہ اللہ ہوتی ہے ان خانقاہوں کی حفاظت فرما. اے اللہ مدارس عربیہ کی حفاظت فرما. میرے مالک اس امت مسلمہ کی حفاظت فرما. اے اللہ ہمارے عزیز اقارب، رشتہ دار، مشائخ، اساتذہ، والدین جو بھی اس دنیا سے فوت ہو چکے ہیں، جو حیات ہے اللہ ان سب کی مغفرت فرما. اللہ جن کی مغفرت فرما دی اپنے قرب کے اعلیٰ درجات نصیب فرما. ربنا تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم تب علينا انك انت التواب الرحيم. صلى الله تعالى على حبيبه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Inshallah, Hazrat is visiting us from Karachi just for this very purpose of meeting people. Inshallah, tomorrow there will be a Bayaan at Masjid Zakaria. Masjid Zakaria Fremont tomorrow after Isha. There will be a Bayaan at Masjid Zakaria by Hazrat. Inshallah, the Isha will be at 7.